There are 15 games tonight in MLB action, a day game going on now. But which of those games should you be betting? That's what you're going to find out right here on First Pitch. And with me, I got two of the best baseball cappers out there. That's right. I got Eric Pauly of the Gold Sheet holding it down, and Adam Trigger over at WagerTalk.com. And gentlemen, it is a beautiful slate in MLB action. Lot on the card to purse through. So, EP, I want to start right with you and take a look at this Miami and Detroit game. I'm wondering, as far as the side and total, obviously, how you see this game kind of shaking out. But one of your specialties is diving into player matchups, pitching matchups, and finding some player props that would be some worthy additions. Hey, Spencer Torkelson, he seems like he's finally finding his footing a little bit there at the plate. Could he be a worthy addition for you? What say you, EP? And, of course, welcome in, brother.
What's going on? It's nice to see Torque actually hitting the ball well. Obviously, a very highly touted prospect. But as always, focusing a little bit more on the pitching. So now this price to me seems very fair overall. Like the Detroit Tigers are a better team than Miami Marlins. 175, maybe a little steep, but I'm not interested in backing Ryan Weathers today or this depleted Miami bullpen. We know Detroit's bullpen's not great also. We saw them fold a little bit last night in that close game, which Detroit ended up pulling out the W. But I want to really focus in a little bit more on Reese Olson, pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. I'm a big fan of this kid, 24 years old, good percentile rankings, and expected ERA and expected batting average. He is not a huge strikeout pitcher, and this Miami Marlins offense is not a huge K-rate offense either. But he has very good chase and whiff metrics, and something that Miami has done a lot this season is swing early and often, which results in some poor counts, which also results in some strikeouts. That's why I'd be a little bit keen on maybe Olson looking at his strikeout rates. But another reason why I like Olson today is because he's a big ground ball pitcher, and in the last 14 games against right-handed pitching, Miami has a 46.6% ground ball rate. We're not getting any lift, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, that you don't want to be always on the ground. Hard ground balls, sure, sometimes, but that's a recipe for outs. Other hand, Ryan Weathers, lefty for Miami, struggling against righties, of course. He's a decent ground ball pitcher in his own right, but his advanced metrics are not good. High expected ERA, high expected batting average, decently high barrel rate and hard hit rate. And there's one hitter that I'm actually keened in on for the Detroit Tigers. That's Wenceel Perez. Now, Weathers pitch mix to lefties. He's got a four-seamer, changeup, sweeper. He really sticks to those three pitches when facing left-handed batters. Perez is a switch hitter. Will be batting on the right side. Perez, he's close to the top of the Detroit Tigers lineup in run value created against four-seam fastballs, changeup, and he's solid against sweepers. And this season, as of ready against lefties, he's batting .333 and .556 at home. It is a small sample size, but Wenceel Perez for 2+ bases is something in the alt market I'd look at today for the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, I love those total base props as well. Something that I love eyeing in on and potentially get, a more advantageous price than just taking some straight hit props. So love that look right out of the gate. This is the kind of stuff you're going to get from these guys. They love diving deep on the entire card. That includes taking a look at some of these players that you can ISO in on. Adam Trigger is with us, and Trig, I can't believe, the chat's already saying we have two opportunities to take the White Sox today, getting the run and a half. I can't believe that that's not the game you want to talk about here out of the gate. We'll be touching upon that doubleheader for damn sure. But let's start off with this O's and Blue Jays game, the battle of the birds here. It took 10 for the Jays to best the O's at home yesterday. It's Bassett and Bradish on the mound. So this, I think, is an intriguing matchup. You see a big-time price on the O's. You think that price is justified, or is it a barking dog again in this one? What say you, Trig?
I like the Orioles here. I think the numbers about right. Like, that's kind of what I expected it to be, which is why it's not on my client card. But if there was ever kind of a spot to, I don't know if it's buying low. I don't know if minus 165 is necessarily like a buy low, but the Orioles haven't lost 3 straight all season. And so I'd kind of be surprised if that happens at home. And the Jays, I'll admit where I'm wrong, right? Like the Jays, I got wrong. I was high on them coming into the season. I don't think they're dead, like in terms of, can't sort of hang around and potentially compete for a wild card spot. But, this team's just not very good. They're not as good as what I thought they could be coming into the season, where, they kind of were left out of the conversation a little bit. And I thought that was incorrect. And now it looks like the people were right to do that, because the pitching's not great. The bullpen is awful. Like the bullpen ERA right now is over 5. It's, statistically one of the worst bullpens in the league. And, there's nothing down at AAA to help that. They have no pitching down there. It's why you still got guys like Alek Manoah on the roster. There's just not many reinforcements. So they're either going to have to find a way to go out and get some pitching from somewhere, or I think you're going to see this Blue Jays team kind of middle all season long. We'll work back to front here. Jordan Romano last night pitched 2 innings. Their closer, so who knows if we'll see him today. And, that's what the problem is with the bullpen, is once you get past Romano and Yimi Garcia, who also threw last night, the back end is really poor. And then you go this, starting this game is Chris Bassett, a guy that, he's going to be okay at times. Pitched pretty good against the Phillies last time out. He's had a couple good starts, but I guess another thing I'd be willing to fade here was him having like the wipeout start. He's got an ERA over 5. His WHIP is 1.55. He hasn't really shut anyone down completely this season. He's given up at least an earned run in every start. So I'd be a little bit surprised if he's the one that comes out and shuts this Orioles offense down, which has proven to be one of the better units in the league. The Jays have been dealing with some illness. Dan, I heard someone call them the flu Jays yesterday. I thought that was creative. They have the flu bug going around the locker room. Justin Turner, George Springer, Kiermaier have all missed games recently. So you've got, I heard Berrios was battling it as well, and he just kind of pitched through it last night, which was huge for them. I don't know what they would have done, if he couldn't go last night. But the other, Danny Jansen has missed time, and he's had back spasms, and he's not the name in this lineup, but his OPS is 1.054. It's one of the top marks in all of Major League Baseball. So he's been a big omission for them. So, the Orioles, you're going to have a chance to fade this team when guys like John Means, some of their lesser starters are pitching, but Kyle Bradish is not the guy I want to fade. He's actually probably the one I'd be looking to back. I didn't want to come out. I don't love backing guys that missed considerable time at the beginning of the season. So that's why I kind of avoided him in his first 2 starts. But, he didn't give them length yet. He didn't pitch past the 5th inning, but the stuff looks really good. His sinker looks unhittable. He's got 14 strikeouts in 9 innings, 9.2 innings pitched. He had 9 strikeouts in a no decision last time against the Nationals. You go back to last year, he had a sub-3 ERA, a WHIP near 1. He was averaging roughly a strikeout per inning. Like, this guy, looks like his ceiling is, one of the top pitchers potentially in the American League. He's the guy on this rotation I want to back. I'll fade guys like Dean Kramer and John Means, who I don't think are what their numbers say they are. But Bradish is a guy that I think, he's probably going to if he pitches to last year's numbers, there's still value in back, and he sort of ramps back up to speed here. So I like the Orioles in this spot. It was a little pricey for me, but if you can find a way to get involved with them, I'd be shocked if they lose their 3rd straight tonight.
Yeah, it makes a heck of a lot of sense to me, and this is one that you definitely want to have your multiple outs and shop around on, because we're looking at as high as like minus 167, and we have as low as right around like minus 155. So you can save yourself a good 10 cents plus of juice shopping around, but kind of seems like the market bouncing around on this one. Bradish and Bassett, hop below in the comments. Let us know how you're looking to bet it. Some folks saying the Orioles may be a worthy parlay piece. And EP, there's a lot of like chalky home favorites today. Of course, it's not all the way across the board, but you got like the Braves are almost 2-1 favorites. You got obviously the Padres with Dylan Cease laying over $3 at home. Seattle Mariners about minus 160 as well. With all these home chalky favorites, does it seem like it kind of is a home favorite day, and maybe some folks could be getting some of those parlays that they love throwing in? Or would you be a little bit hesitant here in a lot of these game twos to just say, hey, let's back some of these home sides? What do you think as you run down the board? Any of those prices kind of stand out to you? Because the one that makes my eyes pop out of my head is Dylan Cease. I know you're playing the Rockies, but 310 on Dylan Cease. Come on, man.
Well, I had the Padres as my parlay piece yesterday, and if you aren't familiar, they had bases loaded, bottom 8 and bottom 9,
Oh,
and
no.
able to get a run across the board, and that killed a little two-legger it had going because that one was just riding on that Padres there. Anything that I'm looking at for a potential parlay piece now, again, when it comes to baseball, I don't care like the matchup, what's going on. I'm not laying 315, whether that be in a parlay type of bet or straight up on the money line. Obviously, I'm not somebody who like completely stays away from juice. Like if it's 315, you really think it should be at 400, that's probably a good bet in that sense. But on a term of MLB baseball game, a meaningless game on May 14th, I'm not really dying to run to the table to window to bet on Dylan Cease. But if there's any team that I'd like to do that with, or at least have a little bit of a parlay piece, now this line kind of went in the other direction, but I still think it's incorrect. That's the Houston Astros against the Oakland Athletics. Now, all the talk about Oakland, how good they've been all season, all of it is warranted, one of the best offenses in baseball this month. However, we saw last night that Houston got to Oakland pretty early and Oakland shut down, just 2 runs scored. And now JP Sears is going, and while I'm on this game, I guess I'll give out a prop that I wrote about for WagerTalk earlier today. So I like JP Sears under strikeouts. It's 4.5 and it's juicy. But this Houston Astros lineup has performed so well and not striking out against left-handed pitching. And they know Sears well. And in 3 starts last year, he only went over this number 1 time, and that was the first time he faced Houston in his career, which the advantage there generally goes to the pitcher. But if there is a game of the big home favorites I look at as a chalky parlay piece, I would look toward the Houston Astros, and I wouldn't mind pairing it with the aforementioned Detroit Tigers.
There's some guys and some thoughts there as far as the favorites go today, and some potential parlay pieces for you in the chat. Hop below and let us know what your favorite are. Speaking of the chat, shout out. We got Tyler, FB Coach. We got Titan CT in there as well. Everyone joining us, we appreciate you. Take 1 second, hit that like button. These guys would greatly appreciate it, and it goes a long way in keeping this content coming your way. So we would greatly appreciate that there. So we talked a little bit here about favorites, obviously, and we actually have in best bets some nice barking dogs come up. So you plus money players that don't want more legs, you want to stick around. We got 2 best bets coming from these guys. Already broke down the O's and the Blue Jays and Miami at Detroit. But Trig, I teased it in the open. We have to talk this 2-game set here today. The postponement, obviously, yesterday, there was kind of a strange one between Washington and Chicago, means that they're going to go for 2 today. I guess, Trick, first things first, like, how does betting these or not betting games that have postponements that roll over the same starters kind of factor in to the way you do it? And we'll talk this with EP as well. But in the game 1, at least, I know that we have what's our pitching matchup there? Flexen and Williams. So yeah, they're rolling it over from what we were seeing yesterday in game 2. I know you got your NC Dinos guy and Fetty on the mound. So I know with you, sometimes you just ISO in on that game too. So thoughts on this double set, because it's your Chicago White Sox. That's it.
Yeah, we've got 2 KBO pitchers. If you remember, Chris Flexen was kind of the first one to do it, recently, where he went over back in 2020, had a great season, came back, and he's turned that into like a second chance in the big leagues. So interesting that they both get the ball for the White Sox, and kind of tells you what the White Sox are at this point, that they're trotting KBO starters out on a regular basis, basically. But so you said something. I disagree. Like, you don't get the chance to bet White Sox plus 1.5 here, because the juice is up in the -150. The whole reason that we've kind of targeted White Sox plus 1.5 on this show at times is because there's been good spots to bet it, and you're getting even money, -105, -110. So, I mean, so even if that makes sense, you can't come out and lay -150 with that bet. And I don't really want to bet on the White Sox to have to win. I like, with a team as poor as the White Sox, not that the Nationals are a great team by any means, but I do like, they're really only a team I want to bet if I'm getting the run cushion. So the way I look at these doubleheaders a lot of times is resources, Dan. Neither of these teams have like extensive resources, in my opinion, especially ones that, like, this is the beginning of a week. They lost their, sort of Monday off day. So I guess the way I would kind of look at this doubleheader is see who burns up what in game one. I'm just trying to quickly look here and see, they play a 2:00 game tomorrow, and then it looks like both. So, okay, it looks like both are off on Thursday, but again, it's probably going to be, if you're the White Sox, like if they come out, they're able to win game one, but they use Kopech and some of their more high leverage relief guys. I guess you could look Nationals in game two, but the I'd rather have Fed. If I'm looking to back the White Sox, I'd rather have Fed than Flexen. So what I would probably hope is that, the White Sox get killed in the first game, save all of their top options to stack behind Fed. And then, you're getting Fed minus 105 at home. He's been the sort of like the breakout, kind of like he's kind of been a star this year for the White Sox. And I still think he's undervalued, underrated. So I might see, I don't know if I'll actually play it, but I may see if the White Sox kind of, the ideal situation would be the Nationals going out, winning game one, close, burning a couple of their top relief arms, feeling like they've done enough because, of course, they're on the road. And then it's like you get to the night game, the building's empty. That might be the spot where the White Sox can come back and take game two with the better pitcher on the mound.
Now, EP, I want to get your thoughts, too, on this double slate and how you kind of eye betting it. We have Tyler in the chats just talking about how the under in game two is the way that he played it, and that was a play that was 8, and there still is one rogue 8 out there, but we're looking at pretty much 7.5 painted across the board. The one worry for me, though, and I get it, maybe the bats get tired having that double set. Maybe that's more anecdotal than anything. But as the day continues, from the models that I'm looking at, it looks like it's going to be all kinds of wind blowing out in game two. Does that affect how you could potentially bet it? Or do you always ISO in whatever happens in game one, then we bet game two afterwards? Or do you ever, try and get a double play, so to speak?
Yeah, so I agree with Trig that you really just have to see what happens. Like, there's no benefit in betting really game two now because, for all you know, and like obviously don't hope this happens or anything, 2 guys go down with an injury and the next thing you know, you're getting a terrible line and vice versa. So there's literally no real benefit. Like, you're getting a nice CLV on one play one day today, potentially. Over the course of the season, obviously you prefer to get as many of those as possible, but it's not something that I'm just staring at game two or just automatically feeding the team that won game one. Like, you got to really take account what happened in game one. And with that being said, I took the Washington Nationals on the money line, minus $1.15. It's a situation to me where I simply feel as if I am getting the better baseball team at a 115 price. So I'm taking the Washington Nationals. I bet it myself, and that's good to go. Some of the reasons why I like it is because I am not a fan of Chris Flexen. I'm looking at some of his advanced numbers, like very low expected ERA, expected batting average. It's not strikeout batters. Does a good job limiting barrels and hard hit rates, which is nice. But Trevor Williams has been a guy that I've faded a few times this season to my own disarray because he has pitched really well. And like the advanced numbers are backing it up. He's really not allowing a ton of hard hit contact. And he's been just a generally very solid pitcher with high advanced metrics in terms of expected ERA, expected batting average, and low barrel rates. So I'm looking at that. And also another hitter to give out in this game that I'm looking at. I don't know how I want to play it exactly. You did mention the wind, newbie, and that was something that I was looking at earlier as well. But I like CJ Abrams. Now, it's hard to not like CJ Abrams, but
sounds like we lost our man EP there.
No, I'll jump
back.
I want to jump in with just to. I don't know what he was going to say, but I know he said he kind of liked the Nats in game one. If the wind is blowing out, like what I've noticed with Flexen is if he's not good, he tends to miss up. If you watched him last year when he struggled, it was missing up and giving up like fly balls, which for the type of pitcher he is not ideal. So if the wind is blowing out and he doesn't have his best stuff, he could give up a couple home runs. One more thing I want to add about game two. Definitely some like potential personal revenge for Eric Fed. He was a first round pick of the Nationals. Like that's where he spent his whole career prior to going to Korea. I wonder if he like feels like he pitched hurt for them in 2022. And then I don't know that they bailed on him. Like he went over to Korea and got paid. He may have wanted to go there, but like, he was a first rounder. Like he wasn't just some scrub, right? Like he was a former first round pick. So, now he gets to face his old team that did kind of give up on him, I suppose, if they let him go over to Korea. So maybe like a little bit more. He may be motivated right there in that second game. So I would say White Sox in game 2, especially if the Nats win game 1. I don't think there's going to be a sweep in this doubleheader.
And EP, I'll let you finish up your thoughts. We did have Jesus Lopez over in the YouTube Shorts chat. We appreciate you asking about the White Sox or Nationals money line. The guys basically broke down both games for you. But EP, you were just kind of wrapping up your thoughts on why exactly you think maybe the Nats in game 1 at least would be the side for you in that one. So I'll let you touch upon that before we move on over to a chat game, which is the Mariners that we'll talk about in just a second.
Yeah, I got most of what I was trying to get out there. Just simply better team. And CJ Abrams, I like as well because he hits the pitch mix that Chris Flexen throws very well, and Flexen has worse splits against left-handed batters. So I look at CJ Abrams in the total base market, and I play the National on the money line.
Nice and easy. Give these guys a like. Hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. If you're watching us on Instagram or the X, make sure you already hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate that one. EP, I want to throw it back your way before we get the internet to give out here again and get your thoughts here on this Seattle game, because earlier today on WagerTalk today, Marco D'Angelo was chatting about this game, and he was referring to Waka as a good pitcher who's playing badly, who he thinks there could be some positive regression. He's going to oppose Gilbert, who's 3-1 here on the bump, a nice .94 whip. Thinking, how do you see this one shaking out? It's a pretty decently big price here on the Mariners. I believe the play for Marco D'Angelo in this one, he was looking to take the Royals in the first 5. Trying to back Waka and find that positive regression. How do you see this shaking out? And do you agree or disagree as you look at what you're seeing on the bump from both of these guys?
So I think that what Marco said is true, but I also think it goes both ways. I think Gilbert is due for some positive regression from that terrible start last week against Minnesota. I think that, not even that, I think that when looking at some of like the weighted on-base average of the Twins lineup that game compared to the expected weighted on-base average, like the Twins clearly outperformed their numbers, and Gilbert's advanced metrics were nowhere near as poor as the outing ended up being. So I would definitely expect Logan Gilbert to get back on that track. The total here is sitting at 7, but juiced to the over. If you could find something closer to the -115 range, which might be difficult, I potentially look over, as the Royals' offense has been relatively good. Relatively good. They're one of the better offenses in baseball. At the same time, Mariners pitching all over has been one of the best in baseball. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pound the table for a Michael Waka, but I'm also not going to, oppose what Marco said, because he is, like, again, advanced metric-wise, and he is doing relatively well. But if anything, I look at an over here, but it's not something that I have really taken a deep dive into. So not something I'm going to sit here and sit on the table for either way.
So, Trig, I'm wondering for you, if we're talking all about some potential positive regression for Gilbert and the same case for Waka, or Gilbert, coming back to the mean, excuse me. Why wouldn't this just be a potential nerfy play? The people love their no runs first inning. That's the way FB coach is looking. He says possible nerfy in this one, or if you think the pitchers are going to be sound in this one, maybe look for a first 5 under. I mean, I personally don't have anything I love in this. I'm kind of with one of the guys in the chat who's saying, right or wrong, I just don't bet Mariners home games. I kind of ascribe to the similar thinking in that. But Yerfy, first 5, anything for you in this one, or was this one that just kind of got crossed off your list?
Well, it got crossed off my list because I don't agree with so Waka's just going to have his second career resurgence, right? Like he was cooked like 4 years ago, and then he bounced back to have like 2 really good seasons. He's 32. Like, I don't think there's a guarantee that Michael Waka just has his second. For like 3 years he had an ERA over 5. I thought he was just done, and he comes back and has like 2 really good seasons. So I'm not that high on him. I do love the Royals, though. That's the thing here. Like the price on the Royals is, especially as this continues to get bet, which it'll likely just be all Mariners money because the market loves Logan Gilbert, and I don't disagree with that. He's really good. Like I have no issues with that, but The Royals are a better team than the Mariners, in my opinion. So I'm willing to, like, I would probably agree with Marco, but maybe from the full game, just try to get all 9 innings and the plus price. And then, of course, you get all 9 innings, you're going to get Gilbert out of there at some point. I like the Royals, but this wasn't the setup I wanted to try to play them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And Optimal Prime, shout out to you in the chat, keeping us honest here. See, we got so many plays, they're hard to keep track of. Marco has Optimal Prime. I know he's subscribed to the channel, and you should be too. He was tuned in on Wager Talk today and said Marco was looking towards laying a half run. So misspoke there. Sorry about that. He was looking at laying a half run with Seattle in the first 5.
And
so
yeah, just for a second, like, so just for a second, this is moved considerably. It's up to, like, minus 155, minus 160 is way different from what the open was. So you can't play the Mariners now. You're either going to take a shot with plus 140 on the Royals, or you. I don't know how you lay minus 160 here with the Mariners.
Yeah. Forget about it. With this nice, healthy slate that we got, probably already talked about that one for long enough. We got a chat asking about Boston here tonight. And folks, we do have best bets coming up. We're going to talk A's and Astros and the Twins and the Yankees. So if those are the games that you're eyeing, you want to find out what our experts think about it, best bets coming here in just a few moments. But the question is, Pivetta for Boston against Savali, could he provide the spark that the Red Sox need for a little bounce back against the Rays in this one? EP, I'll give you first crack. Chat wondering, is Pivetta the side laying a modest home favorite here? And we've actually seen some over money come in this game as well.
Yeah, I think the over money is definitely warranted. Now, if you were like me and unfortunately had the first 5 under last game, this game had 6 runs in the first inning, so that bet was dead. But this game still did not go over the full game total of 8.5. It ended at 8, and that was sparked by an error. Then in the bottom half, a ball that was potentially on the line of being foul and fair. I thought it was foul. Umpire thought it was fair, and that's what matters. So that ended up being the killer. But looking forward to tonight, both of these teams have done well against each other starting pitchers. Like the current Tampa Bay Rays roster has a 391 expected weighted on base average against Pivetta, a 528 expected slugging, and a 278 expected batting average. That's with 113 plate appearances, so that's not a very small sample. Savali, smaller sample, but just as 4 numbers against his Red Sox roster, 513 expected slugging, 415 expected weighted on base, and a .33 expected batting average. The Tampa Bay Rays bullpen woes have been, talked about ad nauseum all year, and for good reason. They stink. On the other hand, Boston, a team with not expected to have a ton of pitching, their pen has played a lot better this year, but I do expect that regression to bring them back to a more of a around or above league average metrics, because they don't have like these names of guys who are really so good, just pitching so well. So I would look potentially toward the over here in this matchup of these two teams that I do have rated relatively similarly. I have Boston just a little bit higher. I guess that the price makes sense. I'm looking at it now, just literally probably basically a pick 'em, kind of both ways, a little bit more favorite to Boston, but that over 9 is juiced up now and open 8.5 juiced up. I would look at the over, if anything, in this one.
Yeah, and Trig, it almost like defies logic just when you look at this matchup in recent history. Like the Rays have absolutely owned Boston. And I know that past results never a future indicator, yada, yada, yada. But 12 of the last 14 times these teams have faced off against each other, it's gone the Rays' way. So it makes me scratch my head. I don't really understand what it is about this matchup that just doesn't go the way of Boston, but it didn't again last night. And you can call it fluky, you can call it whatever, but the proof is in the pudding. Tampa Bay has just owned this Boston side.
Yeah, but the Rays used to be good, Dan. That's the thing. Like this Rays team isn't that good.
Good point.
Like they were good for years. So like this whole sample, even last year, remember how hot the Rays were and how good they were for the first half, and they kind of like fizzled once the whole Wander Franco thing happened. But like this Rays team, it's actually shocking that this team is 500 right now. I feel like they should be far worse. So I would fade that whole like, okay, they've kind of owned the Red Sox. I don't. I mean, yes, they won last night. That's fine, but I don't think they're going to win 12 of the next 14 with these two, because that would essentially be the rest of the season, right? Like these teams are going to have, I think they're going to play 13 times. So if that's going to be priced into the number, like this Rays team is far worse than last year's. And I think they've actually overachieved to get to 500. So I'd be willing to play against them here.
All right, last one, guys, before we get best bets here. We got Daryl Turner checking in the chat, and we appreciate you. Keep those comments going, and make sure you hit that like button before you check these guys out over at WagerTalk.com. Cleveland and Texas. I said we were reading the tea leaves, and manager Bruce Bochy was not giving you many bet on quotes if you were trying to back the Texas Rangers. I didn't think it would be that easy, but we cashed with a relative rocking chair ease. Cleveland 7-0 last night. So now we got Jack Leiter making the home debut as Texas really trying to just snap this streak that they're in. This for me, EP, is almost like, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I lean Cleveland. I think I got my money with them last night. I don't know if I want to go back to the well, but until Texas snaps out of it, they're certainly not a catch the falling knife kind of team, because they look bad, EP.
Yeah, I agree. It's a situation where I would like to, bet on the Texas Rangers like it's still 2023, because that team was so fun, but you just can't do it right now. Like you said, newbie, they're a team that the knife is falling and going to grab, but especially now with Jack Leiter, who I'm not surprised hasn't been great to start his MLB career. He's somebody who really struggled last season in the minors, and this season in the minors, very small sample, he pitched well. They brought him up more out of necessity than Leiter being like really, really good to go. Like he had a low walk rate in his first couple of starts, which was great to see because he was walking everybody last year. It did not mean he was a finished product ready to be on an MLB roster. I was looking into this game a little bit before this, and I was looking at Ben Lively. So this is a guy who throughout his career never really was able to get it going. Goes to Cleveland. The pitching, programs that they have there are obviously fantastic because they always get people out of the woodwork to pitch better than they actually are. And his advanced metrics are so bad that you have to think that he's going to get shelled sometime soon. Look at his game logs, like 2 great starts against the Red Sox. We've seen this Red Sox offense be very strikeout heavy. Did shut down the Braves a little bit, only 4.1 innings, but, still always nice to see. But again, that Braves lineup isn't as good as it was last year. Then other decent starts against the Angels and the White Sox. Again, 2 lackluster offenses. So the one player that I actually looked at, and now this is something I'm getting a little bit crazier than we normally do here, I was looking at Marcus Semion's alternate RBI market. Now, Marcus Semien has been the absolute catalyst for this team so far. You got Corey Seager not doing so hot, Adolis not doing so hot, injuries down the line. They only had 2+ available at FanDuel today. Normally they have up to 3+, 4+, but I was at plus 550, and I was liking Marcus Semien because he hits the pitch mix that Lively throws to right-handed hitters very well. He hits right-handed pitching very well. He's hitting the ball hard. And I would expect some regression from Lively, full game over, because I'm not trusting Leiter to become an ace, and the Guardians obviously been great. But the one thing that did stick out to me was Marcus Semien, 2+ RBIs, plus 550.
Yeah, and for you, Trig, in this one, also love the fact, I don't know where else. Give these guys a like. We're breaking down the alternate RBI market. That's what you get here on a Tuesday edition of First Pitch, so make sure you are subscribed. But Trig, some folks in the chat room just talking about how, why wouldn't this just be an over game? The concern for me of backing an over 9, sitting at that key number, is do we get the runs coming across here for Texas? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, sure, Cleveland has shown that at least in these last 2 games, their bats have finally come alive, but sitting at 9, I just don't know if I can back a full game over in that one. Anything stand out to you, and specifically on the total? Do we get runs from Texas? If we do, then it probably does go over, but I don't know if we get that.
Well, I think the runs are probably more likely coming from Texas based on what Eric was talking about than the Guardians. Like, at some point, Stephen Kwan being out, it has to hurt this offense, right? Like, guy was leading the 100%. AL in batting average. He's the table setter for this offense. It's not a great. I think it's an offense that's overachieved. They kind of, not a ton of power. Like, they slap the ball around and they've capitalized on opportunities. But I don't think anyone had the Guardians as like this offensive juggernaut coming into the season.
No.
Jack Leiter is probably better than he's shown. And is all his AAA numbers are fantastic. So like I wouldn't be just jumping ship on Leiter. The Rangers have put him into two awful situations: a day game on like a not the best day in Detroit, and then they made him the 27th man against the A's last week. Again, both on the road, like not great scenarios for him. But I'll go back to what Eric was talking about with Lively. Like he's another KBO guy. Been watching him for years. He spent 3 years with the Samsung Lions. He's been able to come back and get his way back into the big league. But the thing that if you go back to last year with the Reds, he relies that he has to hit his spots. And when he does, he can be pretty good. And so far he's done that. But like if you go look at his first month with the Reds last year, it was pretty solid. And then look at where he ended up. ERA ended up over 5. And that was after like a string of good starts to start the season. But Eric's on to something with the prop, and I would target the right-handed hitters in that Texas lineup because Lively's numbers are so much worse against right-handed hitters this year. I don't know why. Like it doesn't really. I don't know what the reasoning for that is. But he's done very well against lefties. The right-handed batters are hitting. God, it's like 360 against him or something like that, and he's yet to really have to pay. Like something I noticed with Lively is he's got 6 walks in his last 2 starts. And to me, that starts to that might be the sign of like the command starting to not be pinpoint. And he doesn't throw it by guys. Like he's got stuff where if his command isn't sharp, he's going to leave a couple pitches out over the plate. He's going to put some runners on. It's only a matter of time before that gets punished. And for whatever reason, right-handed hitters have been pounding him this year. So like I'm not a huge prop guy, but maybe Garcia. Like Adolis Garcia, who's been like just colder than an iceberg lately. Like maybe this is where he breaks out and has a game. It's just, but I don't hate the Simeon call. That actually probably makes more sense, Eric. That's a good. I'll co-sign on that.
Yeah, I mean, all it takes is finally getting a hit, and then that maybe gets some small ball, and then the long ball maybe comes in. But yesterday, 4 hits. 4 hits for Texas in this little blip that they've had. And again, it has been a blip. It's only been a 4-game skid. Total of 6 runs have come across here for the Texas Rangers. So are we going to see the runs come? Maybe. But I do like the breakdown of why they might come today. That's what our man EP and Eric or Adam Trigger are breaking down here on the show. All right, boys, best bets. Let's do it. Yankees coming off a little bit of rest, looking to stay hot. They're going to be opposing the Twins. We talked a lot about favorites here today, EP, but it's time to talk some barking dogs in this one. How are you looking to bet this one?
Yeah, so I'm taking the Twins. Their metrics against left-handed pitching has not been great so far this season. Carlos Rodon coming off another solid start against the Astros. And he has good metrics against the current Twins lineup, but I'm fading him. So obviously Rodon is not the pitcher that the Yankees signed a couple of years back. He has a very poor hard hit rate, barrel rate, expected ERA, and he does not induce a ton of ground balls. And I don't know if you guys remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I broke down an over in the Twins-Mariners game that hit with flying colors. One of the reasons why I targeted the over in that game, and in turn I'm targeting now the Twins in this game, is because when the Twins, a team that is a 3 true outcome type team that walks a lot, strikes out a lot, and hits the ball in the air for home runs a lot, when they get a pitcher who is not good at inducing ground balls and they pitch to their strength, which is hitting the ball high and deep, that is a situation where the Twins are, a dangerous offense and not one that's going to strike out 3 times after they walk the bases loaded and get no runners scored in from scoring position. But last 14 games, Twins 16.2% strikeout rate against southpaws. So that's a great sign for this team. Again, a very high fly ball rate, which is something we're targeting, a high weighted on base average, and a low swinging strike rate. So they're actually putting together competitive at bats and hitting a ball far. Now, Chris Paddock, the Yankees have good. The roster has good advanced metrics against Paddock. We're trusting him and the more rested Twins bullpen. Now, both these teams were off yesterday, and Paddock is not a huge strikeout pitcher. But the Twins bullpen has a better FIP, Sierra, and strikeout rate, as well as a left on-base percentage of the Yankees bullpen. So though you could make the argument that Rodon is the better starter, I don't think there's a real discrepancy here. And neither does the market, as we're looking at a minus 113 plus 100, give or take a couple cents each way on the game. But I think that the home team has the ability to perform better in this situation. And I like the Minnesota Twins to beat the Yankees to start the series.
I like it, and if you want that plus money, get it now, because we were looking at a opening plus 110 price on this consensus line. We're looking at even money if you want to back the Twinkies in that one. Hop below in the comments. Let us know what your best bet is. The one for EP is Minnesota on the money line. Trig, let folks know what you got rocking over at WagerTalk.com, and also let us know how we're betting this A's and Astros matchup, a battle of the A's here. Astros looking to stay hot, but they got to do it against JP Sears and the A's today. How we betting this one, Trig?
Yeah, what a difference if a week will make. Last week I was on this show with you, newbie, complaining about a losing streak. Now I've got 5 wins in a row, going for 6 straight. I've got a 5% Major League Baseball play tonight. It's my first one of the month of May that I like quite a bit. So hopefully we can get that there for a 6th winner in a row. And I may have others as well. So that's up on my page, wt.buzz/AT. Now, as far as my best bet is concerned, Eric touched on this game earlier, and I want to say that the long term, I don't disagree with what he was saying, and it's probably why this isn't on my card. So I like the A's plus 1.5. I wish I just bet it this morning, because this is another one that, this was like minus 110 on the plus 1.5 run line this morning. It's now minus 140. And I think the only reason I kind of didn't make this bet, newbie, is, based on like what we were talking about yesterday. We did the video for this game, and I kind of talked about the Astros being a team that I wanted to play on, the A's being a team that I was starting to look to maybe play against. We talked about the Astros owning the A's since August 2022. The Astros are now 17-4 in their last 21 meetings with the A's. But man, I would love to have that A's plus 1.5 with like 25 cents of value in my pocket. And I do think that this is a so even though this best bet's going to contradict my, sort of my long-term view of these two teams, I do think this is a pretty good spot to take the 1.5, with the A's. And I guess the market sort of agrees with me there. Now, the two things we established yesterday when we talked about the A's was they like to score the home run. Going into yesterday, I actually couldn't believe that when I, kind of found that going into yesterday's game. The only teams that have more home runs this year than the A's are the Orioles, Yankees, and Dodgers. Going into yesterday, the A's were 4th in the league in home runs, which is just mind-blowing stuff if you think about it. And, the other thing I think is a really important point for this matchup is the A's, they thrive when they're ahead. Their record this year, which I believe is 19-24 after the loss last night, I think they've maximized like every potential opportunity to win a game. And I guess you could point to Mason Miller being a big reason for that. He's pretty much automatic. You get the ball to him at the end of games, and it's just a win. He's got, I believe it's 15 and a third scoreless coming into this game. I don't think anyone's going to argue at this point that he's the best reliever in baseball. At least he's like one of like 2 or 3. So the A's play much better when they're playing from ahead. They've got a couple of high leverage guys that they can get the ball to, and they seem to get out and get a win when they're in that situation. I could see them being in that situation tonight because Ronel Blanco does like the 2 things that you don't want to do if you're playing against the A's. 1, he walks a ton of hitters. It's 20 walks already on the season. And 2, he gives up home runs. It's like the only 2 things you can't do to attack this A's batting order: walk guys and give them free base runners because they don't accumulate a ton of hits. And then 2, give up the long ball. And the last 7 runs he's given up across his last 3 starts, all via the home run. And he's 20 walks on the year is awful based on like his, how many innings he's thrown. So those are 2 reasons why I'd want to play against Blanco. Now, Sears is a guy that, like, for me, he's the one guy on this A's rotation that I'd prefer to back, not be against. 1.13 whip. He's kind of like, in my opinion, the best. He's the starting option that I'm fine with backing. We go back to yesterday. I'll bet against Ross Stripling all day. But JP Sears is someone that, we're going on 3 years now, Dan, of pretty strong metrics for him. Pretty good sample size of him being solid. So that's kind of what my motive here was for the A's. Of course, this sort of moved out of range. You got the road team, you're getting the extra at bat, something I always like, getting the plus 1.5. So it's a little bit, when I picked this for the show, again, this was like minus 110, minus 115. At minus 140, I'm not sure I like it as much, but it does feel like the wrong spot to use the Astros. I guess I'll put it that way. So my best bet for the show will be A's plus 1.5. I don't know if you maybe can go first 5 over and just try to isolate Blanco or take the half run in the first 5. There's a couple other ways you can do it. First 5 team total over or just first 5 over. One thing I'll point out with the A's, and another reason I kind of pumped the brakes here a little bit, after last night, they're now tied for the league lead in errors. This team has been kicking the ball all over the field. It's been specifically the last 2 weeks. It's just been horrific. I think they had 3 more last night. Now they have 34 errors, which is tied with the Marlins for worst in baseball. So A's plus 1.5 is will be the best bet for the show. But I gave you a couple alternate ways you could play it, and that's all I've got for this one.
Trig gave you almost every way that you could bet that game. A's and Astros. He's taken the 1.5 in that one. That's the best bet for him. Eric Pauly looking towards Minnesota. One thing that I will say in that game, and a bet that I placed in my pocket alone, one of the things that you guys know I like doing is hopping in like I'm playing double dutch when you got a guy who I like at the plate who is maybe slumping a little bit, who finally busts that slump, and no more resoundingly than what Alex Bregman did yesterday. So while I'm still getting plus money on it, and I think the reason why we're getting plus money is because he has been kind of quiet at the plate, is his total bases over 1.5. Even when he wasn't doing all that great, he was still racking up some runs. So maybe play a little small ball, get on base, get some advancements, maybe rip a double for me. Bregman over the 1.5 total runs in this one, plus 125. That is the bet for me. Big shout out to EP. Big shout out to Adam Trigger. Big shout out to you in the chat. We appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out and check out wt.buzz/deals. It's a great way to find ways to save big here at WagerTalk. And also make sure you grab that daily sheet from thegoldsheet.com. wt.buzz/GS. That's going to do it for us. Best of luck. Everyone will be locked and loaded with another one tomorrow, but you don't have to go anywhere. We got single game videos. We got game breakdowns all around the clock here. You can click the video on your screen right now to keep getting all that info you need to cash on all the sports you love. That's what we do here at Wager Talk TV, and we'll see you next time. Later then.